Welcome everybody, it's Farming Fiasco here, ready to explain to you a couple of free field preparation works that can sometimes baffle people. Right, so I've got a field here that does need lime and it does need ploughing, and I'm going to show you what each individual piece of equipment does. As you can see here, this one does not need lime. It does need lime, but it doesn't need ploughing. So I'm just going to go through some of the smaller ones in the meantime. So we've got this piece of equipment here. This is the plough, and it comes in many shapes and sizes. I prefer the central hitch, so it just means that maneuverability is a bit easier, but you can get these with the offset axis. I find them a bit of a struggle, so I just tend to use ones like this where everything's dead set in the centre, sort of like a subsoiler or a spader. So what is ploughing? Ploughing is churning up the ground, or the topsoil if you will, and it's a required method after so long. It just helps reset the state of your ground really. So as we go forward, we'll see some rather chunky stones come up, but it's just getting rid of everything. Now stones can 9 times out of 10 be rolled back into the ground, but ones that are picked up by a plough cannot be picked up, not be rolled back into the ground because they tend to be quite big. But as you can see, it's removed that state of lime. Now, a lot of people like to substitute the subsoiler for the plough. So let's just have a look at what the subsoiler actually does to your field state. Will it ease the need for ploughing, or will it just continue to need ploughing? So let's just unfold this. This is a rather large one. So we've got a subsoiler here. So they tend to be sort of like this, or you can get the big funky ones that look like this, which is the one I'm using. Requires a lot of horsepower though, so you're looking at an expensive tractor. So let's just lower this equipment and let's see what it does. So we can see it churning up the ground, and it's actually rolling it as we go along as well, which is a nice feature. But if we just subsoil and fold, right, so it does actually remove the need for ploughing, so I suppose to do the same thing. The roller has been obsolete because we've got some large stones here that couldn't be rolled back into the ground, and the same applies here. So if we continue to move forward, you'll see that it needs ploughing. So it's entirely up to you what you use. Subsoilers and ploughs are essentially the same thing. So that brings us on to, we'll go to this, and I think this one's the spader. So spaders kind of look like this. This is the one that I'm using. It's got the big roller at the front with the spikes at the top, and it has the big wheels at the back. Sort of like this. So if we lower this now, I will lower it into the other field, but I'll just get to show you what it does. It's actually doing nothing to this ground at the minute, besides just like, it's just sort of dipping into it. But let's see what it'll do to ground that has been sort of ploughed. It might even remove the larger stones. I'm not 100% sure. I've never actually used a spader. I've never seen the need for it. Well, let's see. What does it do? So it's looking like it's absolutely doing nothing, so I'm assuming this is going to be grass cur equipment. We need to turn it on. I would hope if I turned it on then, wouldn't it? So there we go, we've seen the difference now. But I've not got the help menu up. So I'm assuming that what this is doing is it's pummeling the stones back into the ground with them big wheels. But then again, it's generating some big ones as well. So let's have a look at, as it eliminated the need for ploughing, it has indeed. So that's another fantastic job, well done. Let's see what effect it has on the actual field here. That has had no farm cultivation. So I've switched it on now. And as we can see, it's just making a little path of dirt, it's just cultivating the ground, ready for planting. So I think that's a pretty decent thing to use, and it does work like a plough does, except it doesn't eliminate weeds. That's a big issue. So we can see that there's weeds growing, and the plough does eliminate weeds, and that's something that I forgot to mention about the subsoiler too. The subsoiler doesn't eliminate the necessity to not need any form of pesticides or herbicides. And then we go over to this piece of machinery, and I think this is the disc harrow. Yeah, it'll be the disc harrow. So I think these are commonly used in grass fields, if I do remember rightly. And essentially it's just basically a cultivator. So it won't get rid of the need for de-weeding. Do we need to switch this one on? No, it looks like it's doing its job straight off the bat. So yeah, it just essentially works as a shallow cultivator. So there's absolutely no stones being generated from this. It's just trimming the top. So let's have a look at how this works. Oh, I didn't need to fold it. So let's see how this works on our cornfield. It would help if I wasn't running over its axle. So let's give it a go over here. We're just doing a quick shallow cultivation. Well, it's not even a shallow cultivation, it's a disc harrow. Right, so where have we gone? Where on earth has it gone, actually? There we are. So yeah, it still needs ploughing, so that will have a knock-on effect on our yield. Means that our yield won't be as high. Ploughing increases it quite significantly. And then we'll move on to this, which is the power harrow. So I'm assuming it's just going to be a little more powerful than the disc harrow. So let's lower this down. And I think this is just a cultivator too. Let's turn it on, that would help. Yeah, so that's just a shallow cultivator on a smaller scale. Does the same job as a regular harrow. And you can see the disc spinning quite frantically there. That's quite interesting. I do like that animation actually. I don't know why. So let's move this over here and let's just power harrow here. So it should eliminate the corn. But let's see what it does to the state of the field. Will it remove weeds? Will it remove ploughing necessities? It's done absolutely none of that. And has it done any de-weeding over here? Oh, so it's de-weeded this section. So I'm assuming that there's a hoe at the front of that. That would be the disc harrow. The power harrow has done the same. And as we can see over here with the spader, that the necessity for weeding is here. And then we move on to the more commonly used cultivator. Now I'm pretty sure everybody has come across a cultivator before. It just works as a shallower version of the plough. Doesn't actually increase the field state, but it will help. If your field doesn't need ploughing, it will help. It'll produce some smaller to medium stones. This one seems to be producing large stones actually. That might just be the field that I'm in. But it will increase the need for weeding. And we've got some stones. Not many though. They can be rolled in. They'll have to be picked up by a stone picker. So, I mean, it doesn't help towards the ploughing state. So we still lose that 15%. And then we've got the shallow cultivator. This is... It tends to be needed by a large tractor, so one like this. And you can see why. It's a monstrosity of a device. And it works the same as the disc harrow does. It'll just trim off the edges, well, the top of the soil. And it won't require seeding. Not seeding, everything requires seeding. It will not require the need for weeds to be destroyed. Once you've planted, that may be a different story. I can't guarantee that. I've not put that to the test yet. But in terms of cultivating, disc harrowing, power harrowing, shallow cultivation, there is one thing that makes absolutely everything obsolete, and that is the direct drill. Now, you will need to weed, obviously. You need to de-weed everything. But you've got things like this that don't require any previous cultivation. I can just drop it down, switch it on, and as you can see, it's just planting it straight away. I could even go over to this field here with the sweet corn, and I could just override everything. And that's running into the equipment though. But there we are. So I could just override the corn, get rid of it, demolish it, and I've got myself some more corn growing on top. Don't know why I would like to destroy corn to plant corn, but we have that option. And then it will need the weeds, needs lime, needs ploughing, and it also needs rolling. Rolling is a different job entirely. But yeah, that'll definitely need weeding. And then we've got this one here. So that was the direct drill planter. This is the direct drill seeder. They are a little bit smaller in width. They don't have much of a width as the others, but they do have a bigger variety of crops. And that can be beneficial. It helps a lot with animal farming. Planters help a lot with productions. So like, if you want to make oily stuff, get a planter. If you want to make sunflower oil, you want to make... what else is this? I think some of them can do canola. Can't be on... don't hold me to that. But I'm pretty sure some can do canola. And then this one has the same effect as its fellow friend, the planter. So I can just run it straight through my cornfield. And it'll just demolish all the corn and replant it with some wheat. Because, you know, I don't want corn-fed chickens, I want grain-fed chickens. And then it'll need the ploughing, the lime, and the rolling, and the weeding. But if I planted that on top of a plough... So let's go back over to the plough. So I'm just going to go over to the field that has been used over here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out a few sections of it. I'm just going to cut out probably up to here. These things are quite difficult to manoeuvre. They're big and bulky and in the way. Oh, crashed into that tree. That was not good. So I'm not too bothered about presentation at the minute. I mean, this is just a sample of things to come. So I'm just going to finish this off. And then I'm going to plant on top of this. And I'm going to get the shallow cultivator as it is. And I know I've missed a little bit, but it's a negligible amount. And then I'm going to... In fact, I'll use the power harrow. Not the power harrow, the subsiler. Because it'd be an interesting one to have a look at. Because it is the most resemblant of a plough. So I think I'd like to see how this handles. It's quite narrow for its size, to be fair. But yeah, I'm going to seed on top of this. See what happens. But that's not the seeds vanishing, by the way. That's not the stones vanishing, that's just them rendering out. So they'll come back in. And they'll come back with a passion and a vengeance. Right, so this should just about do it, really. This is just an extra on top, just to show you exactly what these things do. And we all know cultivators are going to need to apply a weeder. But then again, we've already got weeds growing, so that's not a good sign. But that's because it's been rolled. But on the planting side, well, the ploughing side even, not the planting side, there's going to be a lot of mishaps in this video because I'm trying to do it as a one-take thing without any editing. But off we go to the ploughing section. So this has been cultivated, and it's got a direct drill anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So I didn't really actually need it to be cultivated, and I've left that strip there on purpose just to show the importance of the plough. Because with a direct drill, it will just plant directly over the top of that anyway. But it's only making minute changes, but let's have a look. So as we can see, it weeds and it still needs rolling. Obviously it's not going to roll. And here, some more still weeds. But let's move over to the ploughed side. This is one good thing about the plough. So as we stand, we've just got to lime this. So let's just do a bit here. Just help if I turn the seeder on. So that's the seeder on. And then let's just bring it over to this side as well, just to show you the difference. So not only is there a difference in colour, so this one's a bit jaggedy on top, it's got a lot of dried straw on the ground, and it still needs lime, rolling and weeds. If we move up to here where it's a little bit crisper, it just needs lime and rolling, because we've eliminated the necessity for herbicide treatment, or weeding, or hoeing, or what's the other one? The weed or the hoe, and then I think it's just herbicide. But overall, I'd say having a plough is an essential piece of equipment. Subsoilers, because of the size, they're really, really good for stuff like vineyards or olive groves. Spaders and... I mean, I've never actually seen the practical use of a spader. I know some of you might think I'm a bit of an arse for saying that, but I mean, what can a spader do that a disc harrow can't do, or a subsoiler can't do, or a plough can't do? Disc harrows are probably decent if you wanted to do quick work with grass, but they also require some pretty hefty sized tractors for the size of the equipment. I mean, that's only 3 meters wide, and it requires a relatively large small tractor. Then again, that one requires absolutely nothing in terms of effort. Now the disc harrows are just overpowered power harrows. Well, they're just wide power harrows, really. But they are manually rolled rather than through a motor. And then cultivators, I can understand the use, because if you can't afford a direct drill with a seeder, I mean, they're not too expensive, but if you can't fork out the £109,000, then, you know, a cultivator's great, because ploughing requires a lot of stone picking, whereas a cultivator just cultivates the ground, and then you can roll it to remove the stones, or you can shallow cultivate it, and it won't produce any stones, and then you can just seed on top of it. But I would say get a seed with a direct drill, as well as a plough, because if you look at the seed with a direct drill, the maximum workload you'll need is 240 horsepower. And if you wanted a shallow cultivator, you would need 250. So then again, there's not a big difference, but I think an extra tractor would be more beneficial. But a direct drill, it just eliminates that extra job. It does it all in one. But a cultivator, by all means, if you only have a plant like this, or a seeder like this, or that, or these, then by all means get a cultivator. But if you can only afford them, you're not going to get a decent cultivator. So I'd save your pennies and get a direct drill. And if you wanted to do planting with these. If you've got the spur 165 or 206,000, then by all means get yourself a shallow cultivator to go with it. It just depends on your needs, but I think depends on how much, like the size of your field depends on what you need to do. So shallow cultivating is great if you've got a large field and you need a large seeder to accommodate it. But if you've not got a large field and you've got a medium-sized field or a small field, get a direct drill. They're much more beneficial. But I hope it's been somewhat educational. If you do have any questions, write them in the comments. I'll try and answer them to the best of my ability. If you want to criticise me over not knowing what the spader does and why I think it's useless, by all means criticise me. I'll take it on the chin, because I do think it's useless. I mean, what could that actually do? It can be used instead of a plough, but it still requires weeding. So it's not used instead of a plough. I don't know. And that can be used instead of a plough. It still requires weeding. So I'm at a loss. I think plough's the best. Direct drill, second to none. But thank you very much for watching. If you ever learned something, like, comment, subscribe, blah 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 blah. And I'll see you, because the next episode of my Let's Play will be out soon. They're a bit mixed matched at the minute because I'm half asleep 9 times out of 10. But it will be with you soon. Thank you very much, and good night.